Mean Girls is amazing. I was really looking forward to this, partly because I am crazy in love with Tina Fey, but also because, like a lot of people, I do love the original Mean Girls. I will say, however, I don't hold it in quite as high regard as some people. And I say that because maybe if I held that original film in higher regard, I might have had a different response to this film. I've never seen Mean Girls on stage. I'd never listened to the soundtrack before. I made an effort to basically completely avoid any information about this so that I was going into this with basically just the knowledge of the original film and nothing else. And for me, that worked out really well. So initially there won't be any spoilers, but then I will discuss a couple of personal highlights. But ultimately I can just sum up first by saying I loved it. It's amazing. The music was good. I will mention some songs that I loved. The music wasn't maybe as memorable as I personally would like it to have been, but everything else was fantastic. This was released, of course, this year in 2024, and it's directed by Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr., and it's written, of course, by the wonderful Tina Fey. And we have Angourie Rice as Cady, and the narrative is very, very similar to the original film. Something that I liked. I feel like there could be an argument that if they're going to remake it, maybe they should do something different with the narrative. But personally, with this one, I kind of wanted to see how they'd do the same story 20-ish years later. In fact, 20 years exactly. Cady has been homeschooled. She's been living in Kenya. She is now joining what I imagine is a typical high school, and she's learning the ropes, and she kind of gets in with the Plastics, who are the mean girls, and initially it's kind of an experiment, and she's not really planning on becoming a plastic, and her friends are actually a lot more down to earth. These are characters Janis and Damian. I'll talk about those in a moment, but things go off in different directions, and I'll say no more than that. But if you've seen the first film, you'll know this narrative, you'll know how it basically plays out, and I will say now, as much as I loved this, I do recommend you watch the first film first. I think that even though they are very similar, very, very similar, it is a different experience largely because of the music, and also we have a different cast, of course, for the most part, but more on that in a moment. But I do recommend watching the first film first. I'm not necessarily saying it's superior, but at the same time I probably am saying that. But it is different because this one is, of course, a musical. And we have a brilliant cast across the board. Everybody absolutely fantastic. Tina Fey is in this one as well, which made me so happy. And we also have a cameo appearance from Lindsay Lohan, which I thought was really lovely. I won't say who she plays. I won't spoil the exact moment that she appears, but it is on IMDb. It does kind of give it away a little bit. And I think the performances were brilliant. The acting is great. The vocal performances are brilliant. And I'll talk more about the songs in a moment. And I think they did a really great job with it. As I said, I haven't seen the stage version, so I don't know if anything was cut or if anything was added. If you have any information on that, please feel free to share. But I was very impressed with this. Visually, it is gorgeous. I would have liked a little bit more pink. Definitely not enough pink in this for my liking. But the costumes in general are beautiful. The choreography is great. We have some really great camera work, particularly during some of the faster-paced musical numbers. And I have no complaints. I really thoroughly enjoyed pretty much every second of this. With regards to characters, I think my favourite character is Damian. He's played by Jaquel Spivey, and, well, that's not true. My favourite character is Ms Norbury, but that's because of my love of Tina Fey. But I do think Damian is amazing. I just loved everybody, particularly Janis, and I thought Regina George in this particular film was brilliant. She's played by Reneé Rapp. I think there are very big shoes to fill for these characters because these characters are beloved by so many people. And I think everybody did such an amazing job. Then we have the music. As I said, the music maybe wasn't as memorable as I personally would have liked it to have been. But there are two songs that I love and one that I want to talk about very briefly. So the two songs that stood out to me as being personal favourites are Stupid with Love and I'd Rather Be Me. The first one is sung by Cady. The second one is sung by Janis. Stupid with Love is partly about love, but also about maths, which I rather liked. And I'd Rather Be Me is sung by Janis in the gym about, well, as the name suggests, it's about being true to herself rather than being fake and being somebody else. And the gym room scene, I knew that this featured in this film because I think I'd seen some stills from it. And I really was wanting this scene to be in this film because I just love it in the original film, and it just played out beautifully, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. The one thing that I was initially disappointed at was when I realised that Jingle Bell Rock wasn't going to be in this. And I didn't know this because, again, I'd seen stills of the characters in the iconic red festive costumes, so I thought Jingle Bell Rock was in this. But actually they sang Rocking Around the Pole, which is not a song I'd heard of, and initially I was a little bit disappointed. But actually, once they started to sing and once they were performing this, I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was a really great way of keeping that same energy from the original film, but with a bit of a twist. I don't know if that's why they made this decision or if there was a reason why they couldn't use Jingle Bell Rock. But personally, after my initial disappointment, I actually thought it was a good decision and it worked really well. The only thing about this film that was maybe a tiny bit irritating was the frequent mention and product placement of e.l.f. Cosmetics. Now, I don't mind e.l.f. I've used e.l.f. in the past, but it seemed a little bit jarring. It might have only been, I think I picked up on it twice. There was one where Cady was applying e.l.f. lip products in the classroom, and there was another one where, well, she's in the bathroom. I don't want to give the context, I don't want to spoil it, but she's in the bathroom and the camera focuses on, I think it was an e.l.f. nail varnish, correct me if I'm wrong, and it just seemed so unnecessary, and it didn't add anything, and it was kind of annoying. But aside from that, and it was only occasionally, to be fair, aside from that though, I thought it was beautiful. It did a great job with the narrative. The messages come through really clear, and the characters are brilliant, the performances are great. As I said, they had really big shoes to fill. A lot of people love those characters, hold them very dearly, and in my opinion, I think they did an absolutely wonderful job with it. I still think the first one is probably better, but that's generally the case. I think it was a good idea to remake this as a musical, which makes sense given the fact that the musical exists. Had they remade it and it wasn't a musical, it might have felt a little bit unnecessary. But because we have the musical element here, it gives it something a little bit different while allowing us to still enjoy the things that we love from the original film. And if I were in the mood for Mean Girls, I would admittedly probably put on the original film. But that being said, generally I can't fault it. I personally think they did amazing work. It makes the Tina Fey love in my heart sing as well, and honestly, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I'd love to know what you think of it, whether you are a huge fan of the original. Like I said, I love it, but I don't hold it in quite as high regard as some people. If you've seen the musical on stage, I'd love to know how it compares. Do I now want to see it on stage? I'd probably only go and see it A, if the tickets were free for whatever reason, or B, if there was somebody in it in particular that I wanted to see. It's not one that I'm really that bothered about seeing on stage otherwise, but that aside, it's great. Music could have been a bit more catchy, but I keep saying this. We could have done this, but I still love it. It could have been better here, but I still love it. And that's generally it. It's not perfect. There are a few things that are maybe leaving some room for improvement, but at the end of the day, I came away from this film feeling incredibly satisfied, really thoroughly enjoyed the time I spent watching it, and I'm sure at some point I'll probably watch it again.